So good afternoon, everybody, once again. And so how was your lunch? Thank you. So I hope that you all had a good lunch. So thank you for being here for the third session of the day. The topic for this session is Universal Ethics for Disarmament and World Peace. Again, with everything that's happening in the world today, disarmament and world peace is all the more relevant and the need of the hour. As Charles Darwin, one of the greatest biologists, had once said, morality is a crucial instinct for survival in social animals, and I believe that world peace is as essential and critical. Disarmament and world peace should become a norm and not an exception for human species to survive sustainably and harmoniously. So with this thought, I would like to introduce our chairperson and the speakers for this session. We have with us Professor T.K. Mishra, Vice Principal of Ramanujan College of Delhi, as the chairperson. As speakers, we have our first speaker, we have Dr. Nivedita, who will speak on universal ethics from the perspective of psychology. Second, we have Dr. Alexandra Kallay, and Dr. Alexandra will speak from the perspective of education. And then we have Ms. Pooja Melhotra. Ms. Melhotra will speak on universal ethics through Ayur, Gyan, Nyas. And finally, we have Professor G. Ravindran, who will speak on compassion and the goodness app. So like the previous sessions, we will have 20 minutes for question and answer session at the end of the session. And without taking much time, I would like to request our chairperson and the speakers to please come on stage and take your respective seats. Thank you. So before I proceed with today's third session, I would like to share a brief introduction about our chairperson for today's third session, Professor T.K. Mishra. Professor T.K. Mishra, as a professor of commerce and the vice principal at Ramanujan College, University of Delhi, got retired on 30th June 2022. Professor Mishra obtained his PhD degree from Delhi School of Economics. Along with his 40 years of college teaching career, Professor Mishra has also been the Director, Center of Ethics and Values for the last 8 years. As seminar director, he organized 6 international seminars or conferences on issues of ethics. As an editor, he published several volumes of peer-reviewed international journal of applied ethics. His writings in the form of editorials have often appeared in the Speaking Tree, a Times of India publication. He initiated Ethicist Conclave with Tibet House, New Delhi. Professor Mishra was also the director of a newly established School of Happiness. As a course coordinator, he conducted 3 batches of UGC-approved 6-month values-based course in happiness. In 2021, he completed 10 online courses on positive psychology from universities like Harvard, Yale, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. He has also received Distinguished Teacher Award from Indian Accounting Association. Okay, so now, without taking much time, I would like to request Professor T.K. Mishra to kindly proceed the session. Thank you.
I am indeed thankful to the Tibet House. I am really very delighted to be here and to have the honor. Well, over the last decade or so, I have been in touch with Gaishila Damdul. And I have found in him that he is not only intellectually, philosophically, and ideologically committed to the cause of universal ethics, but he is emotionally and sentimentally attached to this concept. So many activities, so many seminars, so many workshops he has organized on this particular subject. Indeed, this subject is very close to his heart. Well, in order to address this topic, disarmament and world peace, we need to go into the genesis of armament and wars. And for that, we need to look into 4 aspects. I have coined a word, ATOM, acronym. We need to look into the universal ambitions that every country possesses. We need to look into, the second is universal threat. And we also need to look into the universal obligations. O stands for obligations. And then universal means that are adopted by the world leaders for fulfilling their ambition, for fulfilling their obligations. Now, universal ambition, 4 P's. You must be familiar with the 4 P's of promotion of a product or something. 4 P's here. P stands for power. Everyone wants to muster nuclear power, okay? Technological power, all kinds of power. Similarly, one wants to have praise. All world leaders are, hungry for having a lot of praise, okay, including China, any leader. And the purpose. Whether purpose is to, extend your territory, okay. You may recall that long back, our Prime Minister Modi, he said, commenting upon the China's approach, that expansionism is a dangerous threat to the world harmony. And then the P stands for the purpose, praise, and popularity. Every leader wants to become popular. So these are universal ambitions. What are the universal threats? Universal threats are ignorance. Universal threats are fear. I really appreciate, though whatever Damdulji said, all are very useful and relevant. One thing I picked up. He said that the fear has to be resolved if we want to have world peace. Wonderful. And what is the threat? Sectarian forces, fundamentalists, fanatic people. These are the world threats, universal threats. And lastly, the means, atom. What are the means? Wartime goods or peacetime goods? Agniveer or Shantiveer? What do you want to achieve all these things? Fulfill your obligations and fulfill your ambitions and everything. I'm sorry to say that Indian nation is emphasizing upon Agniveer, but we actually need Shantiveer. Peacemakers, not warriors. I remember a quote. Thick Neck Han, a great philosopher, He says, the real enemy of man is not men. I repeat, the real enemy of man is not men, but it is violence, ignorance, cravings, ego, discrimination. These are the real enemies, and we need to address all these if we want world peace and harmony or disarmament, anything. We need to conduct research, and no better place than Tibet House can do it. 3 people we have to celebrate the ideologies. Only 3. 1, Mahatma Gandhi. 2, Martin Luther King. And 3, His Highness Dalai Lama. We need to conduct rigorous research. You would be surprised to know that more than 200 advanced research institutions are working day and night in the United States on how a person won independence through non-violence. Why can't we do it here, right here? So, I don't want to go into further details of it, because I'm more interested in listening to my distinguished panel. And in this panel is really very interesting and important in the sense that we have, psychologist Nivedita. She must be having the real treatment of all these, terror-prone world leaders. Okay? And she should answer that now that army soldiers have been replaced by robots, biological war, cyber war. It is only addressing the psychological, mental state of individual that you can solve the problem, not by arming yourself. So we have psychologists, we have educationists also. Well, our principal in the morning said new education policy or national education policy has given a lot of stress on ethics and values. Well, just using those words will not serve the purpose. How to embed ethics into education? One cannot think of education without ethics. A person who is educated, can he be unethical? A person, whether he is educated or not, is judged by his ethical behavior. In the morning, I heard about SDG. SDG is a pompous word. I really pity those people in the United States, or United Nations, sorry. They could not comprehend that all these goals that you are specifying are common goals. All the nations are having it. Why do you use the word sustainable? You should say how to sustain these goals. Or you could have distinguished yourself by saying that values-led goals and ethics-led means. Then you would have been distinctive. So you are not clear what you are saying. Education. We will have someone to speak on education. We have someone from Ayur, Nyas. They have practiced how to inculcate values in the individuals. We would like to hear from their experience also. And then we have a speaker from someone who would like to throw some light upon goodness mode. This is a real problem. All people from ignorance mode or passion mode have to be transformed into goodness mode. They should travel. The journey is very important, where a center like, Tibet House can play a dominant role. I have organized 2-3 functions, ethicist and educationist conclave, where I wanted that those who are doing research on ethics and those who are doing, education, both should come together and share their views, and, they should, come in coalition. Unless they come in coalition, no concrete results can be arrived. So that is what we have done, and I wish this Tibet House to continue with this goodness mode and compassion. Have compassion upon yourself. You should teach all these war leaders, terrorists, that kindly have compassion upon yourself. You are making yourself human bomb, unkind to yourself. What is this? We need to educate them. So, basically, I hope that we will have a wonderful sharing of thoughts, and that will obviously motivate our leader, Geshe-la, to carry on such important events, such important exercises in future also. He needs the mandate of people, and that is what we all would like to give him. Thank you very much. Well, I told you before, Nivedita is with us, and she is the founder of ARTH, ARTH, a mental health initiative that offers counseling and arts-based therapy services for people dealing with mental health issues. ARTH also provides various workshops and training programs for individuals, groups, and organizations. Her academic and professional training across over 25 years has focused on alleviating suffering through compassionate action. She is a trained occupational therapist from KEM Hospital and a psychiatrist, social worker, with a doctorate from the Tata Institute of Social Services, Mumbai, where she also served as faculty. Thank you, Nivedita. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I think it's better to do it like this.
Is it? Okay. Is there a slideshow?
No, you do like this.
One second. Yeah? Lovely. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible? I'm always worried after a good lunch, but since you all are an enthusiastic group, I guess I can leave my worries aside. Thank you, Professor T.K. Mishra, for that warm introduction, as well as that acronym of ATOM, and what you mentioned about values-led goals, as well as ethic-led means. Very inspiring. Really, what a truly special way to celebrate the 87th birth anniversary of His Holiness, that all of us here have chosen to come and engage with a topic which is so deeply relevant. I'm very, very grateful to Tibet House, of course, for multitudes of reasons, and the organizing team and Geshe-la. I will echo what Geshe-la said in the morning in some way, post-pandemic. This is the first time I've come to Delhi, and to be here just feels like walking back into family, and that's just an incredibly precious feeling. I would like to extend that feeling to and with each of you. So if you don't mind, humor me a little bit. You can raise your right hand. Lovely. You can gently place it on your chest, on your heart. And as you sit here, just allow yourself a moment, a deep breath, to allow all of our thoughts, wherever they may be, to settle down, to settle into this moment. And recognize how precious it is that you're choosing to engage with something as valuable on this day. and make the wish that may I benefit from these efforts, and may I be able to spread this benefit to all those around me. Another deep breath, and what I'd like you to do now is look at the person sitting next to you. You can keep your hand on your chest. You want to put it down, you can. Stay with looking at them. If you don't have anybody, catch somebody on the panel here. And just retain that look for a few seconds longer. And allow yourself to breathe out and breathe in as you recognize how interconnected our lives are. And recognize all that's going on in their lives. They have also chosen to be here on this special day. And make the wish that may they benefit from these efforts, and may they be able to spread this benefit to all those around them. And a deep breath and let go, and welcome back. Beautiful. So I'm here to share thoughts with you from the perspective of psychology. I will add a small disclaimer, which I usually do. None of these thoughts are really originally mine. There have been many, many, many great, kind thinkers and teachers who have been gracious enough to leave a lot of wisdom for us to practice and follow. So if you like what I share, please do feel inspired and study more. So coming to disarmament, we understand the meaning of disarmament as a reduction or a destruction of the armaments of a state or group or country. I brought some art in because I feel art can touch us in a way where perhaps language can't. But as we think about disarmament, I want you to also hear all the debates which go on about disarmament, which talk about decreasing political tension, increasing cooperation, building security, more development, a way of achieving peace and stability, and so on. And while all of this is very helpful and very critical, I feel we need to push that envelope a little bit further. We must question what we know, and we must question how we know what we know. Because the same thinking which created the problem perhaps is not the best way to get a different result. Imagine two warring factions, and imagine a line of highly armed military personnel standing between these two warring factions. Is it possible that they have a ceasefire because of this armed line of people? Yes. But is it possible that they truly find peace in that space? And if that's not going to give us peace, then perhaps we need to start looking or thinking differently. So we're going to come to some psychological understandings and some views of exploring how we think. There's a lovely term called cognitive bias. Cognitive bias sounds complicated, but it's nothing but a simple systematic error in our thinking, which occurs when people are processing and interpreting information in the world around them. And it affects decisions and judgments that they make. As you see this, you may think this must be true of all the other people, but that's also one of the cognitive biases that we have. There are over 180 of them, so I'm not going to bore you all with all of those technicalities, but I will talk about one of them. And I think we can pick up number 5, the actor-observer bias. It says, the actor-observer bias is a cognitive bias which involves the understanding the difference between how we explain others' actions and how we explain our own. So take, for example, something really simple. Let's say you came late for the conference. What happens is you had a detailed understanding of your morning since you woke up. So when you reach here, you immediately start saying, traffic was really bad, that particular U-turn, aaj ka din, Tuesday, and so on. Somebody else walks in late, you're immediately thinking, always late, so disrespectful. Right? What makes this shift is really our point of view. And while we can see this on a daily basis for all of us, truth is it's perhaps even happening at a level of states and armaments. How many times have we heard countries stating that I'm keeping these arms and ammunitions to protect me from attacks, but they are keeping it for attacking us? So we start looking at these cognitive biases which influences all aspects of our thinking. And let's not forget about what these cognitive biases mean with our current lifestyle and trends. And of course, when I'm talking about current lifestyle and trends, we will hear from Professor Ravindran in some time about the apps, but as we all know, this is our current lifestyle and trends, no? All of us addicted with these little devices that we have, extremely helpful, of course. But do you also recognize our ways of thinking, our attention, our memory span? Everything has been changing very subtly. Another Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman, talks about how these devices, the smart devices, are actually increasing our cognitive biases as well as our decision errors. So your news feeds and so on and so forth. Earlier when you used to read a paper, there is this one other cognitive bias, the first one, called a confirmation bias. It says it's the tendency to pay attention to information that conforms with our beliefs while ignoring others. Earlier, when you got a newspaper at home, for instance, and you preferred one article over the other, the newspaper didn't keep a track of what you're doing. But today, when you read one article instead of another, your preference is being generated. It's very specific algorithms which are sending you more and more data, which is likely to be stuff that you're going to consume. What is this going to do over a period of time? Your access to information coming from the other side decreases. What is this going to lead to? Really polarized opinions and a decreased ability to engage with views which are really coming from the other side. And in the absence of dialogue and communication, what are we going to do? So all of these biases and our current lifestyle and trends are constantly intermingling, leading to where we are. So it's critical to keep coming back into knowing who are we and where is our understanding at. And one of the things we think we should explore a little bit here is, what is peace? Because we all speak of peace, and peace sounds like a wonderful thing to have. But frankly, the battlefield currently is not only out there. The war is not only between Russia and Ukraine. Given all of our technology in all of our hands all of the time, the battlefield is actually in our own minds. We've become consumers of information which is often violent in nature, which is often causing divisiveness, which is often causing rigidity, or perhaps just not being helpful. It also facilitates what is called groupthink and conformism, because whenever you don't know what to do, for example, all of us left for lunch. Many of us may be here for the first time. What did you do? You immediately looked around saying, where's everyone gone? Then you said, that side. Let me just follow and I know I'll get lunch. Right? And this kind of thinking also interacts and intervenes with how we engage with the world when we are using social media and so on, increasing our tendency to conform, decreasing our ability to really contemplate over these ideas for ourselves and ask ourselves, is this true? Is this right? Is this what I stand for? So we should start examining our notions of peace. What do we mean by peace? Is peace simply the absence of war? That would be as ridiculous as saying health is perhaps just the absence of illness. But health is not the absence of illness, and similarly, peace is not just the absence of war. It also means a lot of wonderful concepts that we heard about in the morning. It means presence of social justice, presence of equity, perhaps tranquility and harmony, and not just on the outside, but also perhaps a little on the inside. So we need to start exploring what we mean by peace for ourselves. Fortunately, there have been wonderful researchers who have also tried to study peace systems. Peace systems are really clusters of societies which do not make war with each other. Because for many of us, war and violence has become such an integral part of the way of thinking that when we look for a solution, we are still within the same box. But when we study another group where violence is not an integral part of their way of life, it gives us a lot of new information. They found that these peace systems rated much higher than non-peace systems on all of these fronts, on common identity, positive social interconnectedness, interdependence, and very, very importantly, non-warring values and norms, which really means when you enter a negotiation or a dialogue where violence is not part of the entire agenda at all, to be able to embrace those values can teach us so much. This is important because it demonstrates to us that peaceful intergroup relationships are possible with all social units. And it also means we get to challenge several of these myths and misconceptions that we are basically a violent lot, for instance, Or even when we talk about biology as a part of aggressiveness, if we study and understand further, we recognize that biology is actually only one part of aggressive behavior. Aggressive behavior is actually only one part of combat or conflict. And combat or conflict is actually only one part of a war. So coming back and blaming it on things like biology are not only unfair, but they're also deeply inaccurate. But what it emphasizes also is the concept of social learning. How do we all learn? That war is something that we have the capacity, unfortunately, to learn, to participate in. Not only that, there are people who benefit and profit from war as well. And then war gets built into our social lives and our institutions, which creates more problems. So where do we go from here, since I'm supposed to be part of the solution groups? His Holiness speaks of emotional disarmament. Thank you. What he means is trying to see things realistically and clearly without the confusion of fear or rage. It's a simple truth that a disease cannot be cured until we take care of the root, which means the fear and the insecurities, which then prompt our need to control others and control other resources, is what really needs to get addressed, like you all did in the beginning of this talk. So really, can we work towards our own inner peace? Because honestly, our inner individual consciousness is part of this collective consciousness. And if we are able to transform this at an individual level, it gives us the space to help those around us and gives us the space to hold for others. Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, since his name was mentioned earlier, talks about anger, violence, peace, joy as seeds. And he says you can think about them as seeds in the garden of your mind. Can we make a choice to think about which ones are you watering and nourishing? And can we make the effort to not nourish the seeds of anger and violence? And we do this every single day, and ideally every single moment, like our wonderful teachers have taught us, where every single message that we get, is it helpful? Which seed is it going to nourish? When I forward it to a group, which seed is it really going to nourish? What cognitive biases of mine am I continuing as I engage with this? And these simple ways can help us to establish a practice. This practice can help keep us stable, keep us on a path which is wiser perhaps. The Dhammapada clearly states, do no harm, practice what is good, and discipline the mind. And this is really the training of all the Buddhas. So when we cultivate this practice with body, speech, and mind, we build our own conviction, and we start having our own voices. And then, in this age, more than any other, we need these voices to be heard. Voices of wisdom, voices of compassion, who speak up with courage. Okay, thank you very much.
Excellent, Nivedita. I think you communicate more by your emotions and feelings than words. Sometimes words can be misinterpreted, but your emotions and feelings cannot be misinterpreted. Wonderful. Well, we have another interesting person from C Learning, SEE, C Learning, like art of listening, we have heard. Similarly, she comes from an organization called C Learning. She is regional manager, Dr. Alexandra Kallay, and she talks about herself that in the past, as a co-founder of Tibet Open House in Prague, a project of the Linhart Foundation, I have been helping to establish a center and developing awareness about Tibetan culture, Buddhism, and implement secular ethics into national accredited educational program. At present, she says, we are primary affiliate partner of Emory University's C Learning. Okay. I would invite her to say a few words on her experience and enlighten us. Dr. Alexandra.
Good afternoon. My name is Alexandra Kallay, and I'm a Chairwoman of Institute of Environmental and Ethical Education based in Prague. On behalf of Czech people and Czech Republic and our former President Václav Havel, I would like to begin with a warm greeting on the 87th birthday of His Holiness Dalai Lama. And we wish him very long life. I would like to also thanks Tibet House Delhi for this invitation. Very thank you to be part of this wonderful conference. So I have been prepared to talk in Czech, but you will not understand me. So I will read it because it will help me. So, secular ethics in daily life in our country. There is hardly a single person who has not been asked the question of what meaning of purpose life has. The answer depends on inner foundation as well as upbringing. Modern education does not pay due attention to the emotional life, the sphere of which embraces inner and ethical world more than manifested world. All that more, however, it shows sensual life as reality that deserves to be studied as carefully as possible. In this way, modern education diverts attention to external things and leaves the emotional and instinctive content to uncontrolled growth. As a result of this education, there is no focus on importance about the growth of mental health or emotional intelligence, and we have witnessed a decline in the morality, high crime rate, deep crisis everywhere. If someone who recognizes only the sensual thing, material's world, want to answer the question about the meaning and purpose of life, he will not find a reason of need for the higher moral perspective. However, there are still people who clearly see the deep meaning of emotional living in the reality. They realize that the fire of lust cannot be killing by feeding it through material development alone. Because they are aware of this, they ask themselves how to act correctly so that it leads them to the perfect satisfaction. We live in 21st century with advanced technology, top quality education, and most of us have access to all kinds of education in the world and the opportunity to become what one aspires to become in life. Despite great leap in material development and physical world, we are living amidst deep crisis in moral value, growing gap between poor and rich, massive gun violence, growing report of mental health related problems among the youth and violence related to war and refugees in different parts of the world. When we observe carefully, we find it a hopeless situation where people are killing people. Children have become frontline attackers and soldiers in military conflicts. Nomadic minorities are constantly detained and exterminated from the land in various ways. We are controlled by the world's media, leaders, and programs that create fear. And in the last couple of years, when COVID was spread worldwide, it is easy to say that fear reigns in the whole world. Amidst this global crisis, we find and realized that none of the individual or state can be free and safe unless everyone else is safe. We have witnessed it in the interdependence of the world, and how our own survival is closely linked with the survival of everyone else. One invisible virus has exposed vulnerability and precarious conditions of human life in this world. Kindness and compassion, global solidarity, and cooperation has come to the fore as most valuable approach to tackle a global crisis. Especially education has a huge role in imparting various emphasis on the human value, which can bring greater peace and cooperation as well as humanity among the people. I was born in Central Europe, in the Czech Republic, where most of us have parents or grandparents who are Christian-oriented. Yet Christianity is become a forgotten memory of the past of our grandmothers and grandfathers. Most of society believes in something higher, in some kind of higher power above us, which is above us, yet this power does not have an exact term. The rest of the majority, especially young people, are mostly atheists who don't believe in nothing. Europe is going through a major social crisis. Most of our families are divorced, and our internal stability can no longer rely on family grounds as it was in the past. But I'm a generation of children and people who must learn to live mostly as individuals. This is how time shapes us. A divorced family does not believe in anything, and the European system has such high expectations for personal success in school, work, personal career. This is the pressure which we go through from young age. We have become a little slaves to education. We have a lot of theoretical information, and we are often successful in our career life, but only a few people are really happy inside. Cases related to the depression, anxiety, exhaustion, and various illnesses related to mental health have been growing into the world, and especially among the young people, which often end in suicide or a long-term inability to feel happy or live a quality life. The system in which we grow up predisposes us to various addictions such as alcohol, drugs, uncontrolled promiscuous sexual behaving, and high dependency on pharmaceuticals help in order to calm our inner restlessness. In recent years, many experts have shown great interest in the sad affair of poverty and the European standard of living in the context of mental health. European Union has included mental health as one of the main directions of support in Europe. But if we honestly ask it, how compassion can really be successfully rooted in a country where the word compassion still does not have an exact translation, and its meaning is very confusing because it goes to the roots of Christianity and compassion, which writes compassion as a kind or empathic act. Emotions were taboo in Czech schools for a long time. During socialist years, the student's task was not to express himself emotionally. If somehow he showed emotion, it was more of a nuisance. He definitely shouldn't have to cry, to be angry, or to be sad. He was expected he will still be cheerful regardless of his needs and circumstances. After the communist regime change in Eastern Europe, they entered schools new subjects such as ethics, global thinking, critical thought. But the children learn more about emotions, about feelings, about attention, critical and global thinking rather than learning how to handle emotions, how to perceive and describe feelings, and to cultivate critical and global thinking. At present, children as well as adults can express their emotions already greater tolerance. It is understood that next to common sense intelligence, perhaps as more important than intelligence itself. Interest and support has come to the fore concerning the well-being in schools. However, there is still a lack of tools that will help children manage risky emotions, show how to specifically take care of their well-being, how to develop emotional intelligence and social competencies. This need for an alternative model of education which can promote an emphasis on humanity, moral value and compassion. Social, emotional, ethical learning, C-learning, can be a possible model that can fill the much-needed void in the current education system. It is such a comprehensive tool for schools, teachers and students, the C-learning program. There is high hope that it will be gradually established first in those prepared Czech schools and subsequently in others. We already have the first partial experiences with C-learning positively changing school culture in the Czech Republic. For example, in a private elementary school near the capital city of Prague. C-learning approach to educating children and adults is based on kindness and compassion. In the Czech Republic, these concepts are understood more as connected with religion, Christianity, not with secular ethics. They are associated with other emotions such as regret or grief, but also weakness and suffering. Thanks to a year of education in the form of C-learning, the outlook on compassion and kindness has changed. Kindness and compassion are commonly used and practiced at school, pervading all areas of the school community life. We as Czech people, we very loved our president Václav Havel so much. And we would like to express that we really miss him and we feel a big loss, especially in this complicated period of time. Our world needs peace. This invisible good that requires the effort and constant contribution of all. We all are very frustrated about the war in Ukraine. We need to urge all the actors in international communities to make a concrete commitment to put an end of this terrible war. The escalation of the conflict has devastating consequences for all the world. Bearing in mind the destructiveness of the weapons and widening of the conflict will threaten the destruction of all humanity. The war shows that humanity had to shed a strange instinct for self-destruction, and that buying more weapons was not the ultimate solution to any conflict. It has never been clearer that for peace to flourish, all people need to lay down the weapons of war, and especially the most powerful and destructive weapons, nuclear arms that can cripple and destroy whole cities and whole countries. We clearly know that we need to raise our voices for peace, disarmament, and to cut down hatred and desire for revenge. In the face of madness of war in Ukraine, let me ask you for a little help. Please give us some support on behalf of our beloved President Václav Havel. Let's together make a strength to change the appeal for buying and sending weapons to an appeal for a diplomatic and no-violent solution to the war. We believe that our humble activities by joining the World Education Program C-Learning can bring support and efforts to participate in making peace in the world. Thank you.
Very good, Alexandra. I think along with C-learning, you have also taught us read learning. And very interesting to go through all your experiences and your suggestions. Well, we have as I told you, one NGO, Ayur, Gyan, Nyas, and in that I think Dr. Tanuja Sharma was also associated long back, I remember. So we have Pooja Melhotra, who is an MBA in Finance and International Business. She writes that she has extensive experience in the field of finance, program management in MNCs and government sector. Well, extensive doesn't suit with you. It should be intensive. Okay. She has also managed various state-level projects in the fields of early childhood education and development. She believes that not just academic education, but an education catering to holistic development of the child can bring social change in the world. Very good. She is currently working as program manager at Ayur Gyan Nyas, handling curriculum and children in universal ethics education. Wonderful. Pooja.
Thank you, sir, for such a great introduction. Before we start the session, I just want to see who all are here with us. So everybody in the audience, on the panel, who all are there with me right now can raise hands like this. Both the hands. Please. And who just had lunch, had a great lunch, can bend towards the left side. Okay, any side, left or right, whatever side. Who wants the session to end soon, can bend towards the right side.
This is part of your 15 minutes, huh?
Yeah, I know that. And who really enjoyed the session can actually wave like this. You just have to move your body, please.
This was required.
Yeah, and that's how we do it at our Nyas. This is how we spread happiness, and this is how we try to spread and stretch also. So this is such a great opportunity, and I would like to thank Ayur Gyan Nyas to give me this opportunity to be able to present our work before such eminent speakers, and to get this opportunity on the special occasion of His Holiness' birthday, and what more we could have asked for. So, Ayur Gyan Nyas, as most of the people would know, we are an NGO, a not-for-profit trust which has been working towards development and integration of universal ethic education curriculum in the diverse spaces. Since 2014, Ayur Gyan Nyas has been contributing towards social, emotional, and ethical education through its curriculum for young individuals in formal, institutional, and community settings. With the blessing of His Holiness and rigorous efforts of our trustees and our team, we have been able to achieve some part of our vision to be able to make individuals compassionate, ethical, and more responsible citizens. Now, as His Holiness has always stressed on educating the heart and mind through our curriculum, we have been trying to teach children, or rather not teach, to remind children and young individuals of what already were born with. Equip values and necessary social, emotional, and ethical tools required for living in harmony with oneself and others. Through our curriculum, we try to teach individuals to be able to regulate their negative actions in behavior, speech, and mind driven by emotions such as anger, hatred, jealousy, and covetousness. By fostering values and competencies such as kindness, generosity, humility, love, patience, and forgiveness that leads to peace and greater happiness for both individual and the society. we just learn how not to just care about ourselves, but also about like how to care. Sorry. There is some error. Okay. We learn not to just care about themselves, but others as well as the society at large, emphasizing on the importance of interdependence and compassion. So through our curriculum, we try to, through certain activities and stories and methods, poems and music, we try to teach young individuals how to feel all your emotions instead of denying emotions. Anger, hatred, jealousy, they are all part of our emotions. Instead of focusing on avoiding these emotions, how one is able to regulate these emotions, their behavior, and not to become afflictive. Our curriculum is designed around 5 components. First is ethics of restraint. It covers understanding of emotions and how to regulate afflictive feelings. It's just like you need to take a pause and need to understand whether our behavior, our actions are actually good for our own self and for others. Does this affect our relationship with others? Through ethics of virtue, we try to add more positive qualities, to inculcate these qualities, and regularly practice these positive virtues and with the discipline in order to be able to live a more happier life. The third component is ethics of compassion. It's the most important ethic, it's the most important value. It develops the ability to place ourselves in another's position and understand their emotions, especially their suffering, and feel motivated to alleviate the suffering of the others. Then comes discernment. It develops ethical judgment so that each decision is sound and reasoned out. And with the help of universal responsibility, we are able to nurture quality that put the interest of others at par with ourselves, and when we act, we think about others as much as we think about ourselves. We are trying to incorporate all these components through our curriculum for pre-primary, primary, and secondary students across. This is irrespective of any religion, any country, any state. It's a very beautiful quote that I read last night, and I just added this slide. Young children do not care about nationality, faith, or caste, because these ideas prompt us to think in terms of us and them. They are divisive. They lead to violence, bullying, and exploitation, and worst of all, killing. The remedy is to look deeper and recognize that we human beings are physically, mentally, and emotionally the same. We all have the potential to develop compassion. It's a fact that as a child, we were never aware about differences. We were never aware about nationality or religion or our faith. We only got to understand all these divisive differences once we grew older. Violence begets violence. It's not an unknown fact that several researches are being done, and a lot of capital expenditure is being done on development of nuclear weapons in order to show strength. As Dr. Nivedita rightly mentioned, that the arms which we carry is for our protection, and the arms others are carry is to attack us. But we need to understand that violence or war bring only short-term solutions and leave behind human catastrophe. Through our curriculum, we stresses on peace and harmony. The focus is on peace and harmony, not of ourselves, but of others and the community at large. Through compassionate communication, non-violent communication, and compassionate listening, we are able to resolve most of our differences. Compassion is built upon sense of security and stronger relationships. It promotes social harmony and reduces the likelihood of bullying. So we try to introduce all these concepts to students who are of the age group of 2 to 14 maybe, and they really do not understand. They do feel compassion, they do feel empathy, they do understand interdependence, but they do not know the concepts. So I would just like to share one story that we have mentioned in one of our book. The concept of interdependence, we share it like by discussing what did we have for breakfast today. Anybody would like to participate? I need a volunteer. For 30 seconds? Yes, sir.
I had played paratha and chai.
You had paratha and chai. You made it yourself?
Yeah, me and my sister both made it together.
So you are dependent on her. Yeah, that's how we learn. And who brought all those? Grocery, atta, chai patti?
I myself brought it from the shop.
Yeah, so we are dependent upon the shop owner as well. And who brought it, all these ingredients to our shop owner?
The transport department, the person who is connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ingredients that is being brought to the shop are by the drivers, truck drivers, and the people who are working in the factories.
Okay, so we are thankful to these drivers also. And from where are they bringing all these?
So from the farmers.
So we are, in a way, dependent upon farmers. So when we say that we are not concerned about farmers' issue, so that is how we should actually be able to understand, be able to sympathize with their problems, because we are dependent on all these people. And thank you so much, sir. Thank you for helping me out with this thing. And that is how we try to teach children at school and at these various communities how we are interdependent, how we are dependent on each other, despite knowing about it. We know our breakfast on the table, we do not know where it is coming from. And that is how we respect our resources also. Studies have shown that at around 2 years of age, children start to show empathy and show and how it is the right time to nurture human values. And through our curriculum, we try to introduce the concept of disarmament and peace, honesty, tolerance, inclusivity, everything at the right age. So many of my friends who are, like, I am from a corporate background, many of my friends keep asking me, what do you do actually? From past 5 months, honestly, I've been telling them, what do I do? They really do not understand. Oh, these are soft skills. Okay. So you're really not teaching IQ-based academic questions, academic subjects. What do you do? So a very simple answer to this question is that I remind people what they have forgotten, that in order to achieve a position, we definitely need academics. But in order to be able to sustain that position, we need emotional balance, which we tend to forget, and we realize its importance only after losing it. That's how we tend to get introduced to terms of mental health issues, depression. Anger, jealousy, frustration, these are the sources of violence. The real world peace comes from our heart and then through our mind. We must strengthen our basic human values. So we live in an interdependent world, therefore our peace and happiness is dependent on others. Taking care of others is not only ethical, but it's essential, it's necessary. Discernment and universal responsibility. Discernment is, so our judgments are based upon our personal biasness, our personal divisions, the ones that we have created for our own self, for our own simplicity, for our own understanding, basis upon gender, caste, religion, region, geographical boundaries. And through discernment, we just try to emphasize on taking responsibility of your actions, which is not but also for the reasons that we are doing it. It's not just the responsibility of your actions, it's also the intention behind it. So doing the right thing is not enough if it is not done with the right intent. Through practice of restraint and developing virtues, we try to practice a discipline To develop a virtue, it is not a one-time effort. You need to keep practicing it. It will be challenged on and on again. And it needs to be practiced as a discipline on a daily basis for the betterment of our own selves and society. We see around the world hate, crime, intolerance, violence, wars. They have increased multifold. Teenagers are using guns and shooting children and killing people with no guilt at all. One should be discerning and not judgmental. And through discernment, we try to emphasize on the importance of insight. So this is one of the projects that we have just finished in Sultanpuri, along with the Department of Women and Child in Delhi. This is a community which is a vulnerable community known for petty crimes, substance abuse, violence against women and children. So this wellness center has been, governed by district magistrate. And a lot of people who are dealing with drug abuse, they do come there to get their medicines. It's kind of a health center. And because of the reason...
Pooja, can you conclude, please?
Yes, sir, just a minute. Children were not able to come and they were not comfortable in coming to these wellness centers. This was a 3-month project that we did, and skills such as emotional awareness, empathy, and discernment that were necessary to unlock the transformative potential of children, they have been used as preventive measures for rehabilitation. And recently we have visited schools in Kaza in Himachal Pradesh in Spiti Valley. It's a difficult terrain. We have visited villages around Kaza. These villages, they are quite secluded. They are aloof. They do not have, they have limited to no network connectivity, and they are suffering, the children over there are suffering in terms of, during pandemic time especially, when the education shifted from offline to an online mode, and they are struggling with issues of lost education, and they need to catch up with that education along with the current academic year. So our curriculum has been very well received, and we have done our baseline research, and it has been very well accepted by the government of Himachal Pradesh, and we are hopeful that we'll be able to continue our project for the next 10 years. That's all from our side. That's our reach. We have been able to reach several states, around 10 states, 83 schools, and a curriculum has impacted not only children but teachers and resource persons and their families indirectly. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, Pooja. You have highlighted the role of compassion in human life. Indeed, very important component, very important virtue. Well, from compassion we come down to goodness, and we have a professor who has authored Re-Enterprise. Okay, Re-Enterprise means reinvent yourself. Okay. Founder, Goodness Project, wonderful. Chair Professor, Leadership Development. Okay. And over 40 years across industry locations and domains, global leadership of SHRM, that is Society for Human Resource Management, winning acclaim from ET for enabling golden institutions of the future. Very good. Grounded in teaching and psychology, followed by advanced studies in behavioral sciences, working on people and leadership development with large institutions globally. He immersed in concepts like industrialized agriculture, export labor, the eye of innovation, oh very good, tomorrow enterprise and golf and P. Wonderful to know all that. Let's hear from Professor Ravindran. Thank you.
Just do whatever I'm doing. Close your eyes. Can you, if possible, repeat after me? Kayena vacha, manasendriyeva, buddhyatmanava, prakritiye swabhavat, karomi yadyat, sakalam parasmay, geshila eti samarpayami. All right, so I was, Geshila talked about my son. My son is he's 40 years old. It's not a...
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is it better? Better? Yeah. So, he often, my name, as per scriptures, is Narayan. So when we do pay our respects to elders, we say Abhivade and Narayan Sharma Aham Asmibo in Sanskrit, right? So the shloka that you just said is Kayena Vacha, body, Kayena Vacha, spoken, Manasendriyeva, Manas and the Indriyas, the 5 senses, Buddhyatmanava, Buddhi, intelligence, Prakritiye Swabhavat, Prakriti as in nature, Swabhav as in behavior, yeah, Karomi Yatliyat, whatever and all this that I do, Sakalam Parasmai, all this on my behalf, Narayana eti samarpayami. So we tell God actually, I sab main karta hu, but all samarpan to you only. So he plays around with this word Narayan, which is my name, and he says all is your fault only. So in this case, whatever I'm going to say in the next 15 odd minutes, Geshila eti samarpayami. Good, bad, I don't know. Okay. There are 3 people whom I was looking for. I can't see any one of them here. The doctor from AIMS. We just met Geshila's friend. He is not here. Rian is here. Rian who spoke with us? No. And the Shanghai professor who met us during lunch. Sab kat gaye yahan se. Post lunch. This, Rian mentioned something about being the youngest here, right? Now, I attribute what I'm going to say to His Holiness. I don't remember the quote, but to me, he's one of the youngest people I have known because he described 2 things as to what is young. He said, I have so much more to do, right? So there's so much to do, so I need to be young, and I haven't done anything much. So abhi paida hua hu, now mujhe karna hai, right? So by that yardstick, I think I'm younger than Rian. Okay. Now, I don't know how I'm going to link all this to disarmament, except that I think Mishra ji gave a very, very nice thing which went home. He said, we don't need Agniveers, we need Shantiveers. Don't ask me who's Shanti, but that's a joke, folks. What is happening? Thank you. But yes, in spirit, that is what it is. This whole thing, had it been named, the chaos that happened, Shantiveer, I don't think there would have been that kind of an emotional response that happened in community, right? The second thing is what Nivedita said, peace. Peace systems. I have not even heard about something like this. Fantastic. And she also mentioned that disarmament doesn't need to be done anywhere except the mind, right? If we were to disarm our minds, I think most of the problems would get sorted out. We would be able to get, a civilized and peaceful world. The Goodness Project started a few years back. Now, I'll say it chronologically without mentioning the years because I keep forgetting. The first experience was with His Holiness. He had come to the Tata Institute to inaugurate a course on secular ethics, right? And the first sentence that he uttered was, change the name. And this was the time when he was coming up with Beyond Religion. He said it has to be universal ethics because secular does not convey in spirit what exactly we want to do. It had to be universal ethics. And I still remember the way he defined it. I've shared it with a couple of you over lunch. He said, because my question was, what is universal about it, right? Two things. Human beings everywhere, whatever size, color, sex, wherever they are from, have two things in common. One, they have this fantastic ability to put themselves in other people's shoes. Yes? All of you have it? Yeah, when you see somebody enjoying themselves, you also feel good. I smile, you also smile. I cry, I break down, you also feel the same thing, right? This is one. And the second is, all of us, universally, any part of the world, we have this need to be treated with fairness and kindness. Anybody here who doesn't want to be treated with fairness and kindness? That is what universal, and therefore, he lectured all of us, including me, and I was chairing leadership development there, saying, it has to be universal ethics, not secular ethics. There began the journey for goodness. We got into an argument over lunch with my director because there were 17 students in the postgraduate program who were taking up this course on universal ethics, which was called, and books were published on secular ethics. My argument was simple. 17 people will pass out of this college and they will change the world. How is that going to happen? The director, Parshuraman, Geshilaji, Tanujaji will remember him. His whole defense was, no, there are 30 vice-chancellors in this large conference. Each vice-chancellor will go there. Okay. Each vice-chancellor, how many students? We have 30, we have 300. Do your math, folks. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there will be 3,000 people at best who would have understood what universal ethics would have been. Now, this is wartime, over lunch, okay? His Holiness just turned around and say, what will you do? You know how he actually, he's very sharp in his childish manner, childlike manner, he asked, what will you do? I said this. Because this is in everybody's hand, right? Second, for this, you can't write research theses on this. Nobody will read it. Some of you may, but nobody. This has to be short, crisp, and people have to get it. If they don't get it, they're going to lose interest and go away. So, what would you do? I said I would maybe create an app and put it there. Long story short, he said, okay, do it. Varun left his job and created the app, Goodness app. And we went to showcase it to him on the 1st of January 2019. This story, I must tell you, it's a minute. We went as Tata Institute, and there was this was in Sarnath University in Varanasi. And long queue on the 1st of January, they were having a conference there, right? And His Holiness was there. And somebody pulled some strings and we were first on the queue. There were about maybe 50 odd people before us. We are talking Varanasi, 1st of January, it's freezing cold. Keep this in mind. We go in. His Holiness normally gives about 5-10 minutes maximum. Hears you. You have a photo up with him and you come out. We met him at 7 o'clock. Varun, me and a couple of my colleagues who were there, we got out at 8 o'clock. And when we came out, that line was a few thousand strong, and outside the gates of Sarnath University, people who have been there will see it's a long walk. Women, children, elderly people, all waiting patiently, and there's this joker with a group of people who come out. If looks could have killed, we would have died that day. What caught His Holiness's attention was a few points, which is what I'm sharing with you. And therefore, I'm saying everything is Samarpan is here only. The guidance of people like Geshila, I must mention the Venerable Nareshji, who we've had discourses with, debates with, fights with, as to how we should do this whole thing. The core theme of the Goodness app was it is about the youth and the next gen. Right? How many of you are less than 50 years old? Stand up, please. Less than 50 years old. Hare Ram. Okay. Please stand up, 50 years old. Here, the oldies can sit. Okay. यहाँ पर? Stand. Come on, come on.
Being professor again.
Right? Look at it this way. What is the average lifespan of a citizen of the world? Any idea? No. Google it. 73. I did it while somebody was talking. Right? Please sit down. The average age of an Indian man, 70. I'm nudging there. So whatever we want to do, if I do, I don't have time to do it. You guys, you people who stood up, if you don't do it, you have the world you deserve. And honest to God, you have to start thinking differently now, right? The Goodness Project, the first thing was, we said we should focus on all due respects to seniors, elders, venerable scholars, everybody, we said, it has to be the next gen. And I've already mentioned to you, it has to be about scale and reach. Scale, Ayur, Gyan, Nivas, please, I'm not hitting out at you. How many years have you been in business?
7 years.
7 years? How many people have they covered? Last slide. None of you read it. Yeah. A few thousand in 7 years. It's enormous work if you consider that they started from nothing. We are a population in this country alone of 1 billion plus. There are 7 billion people in this world. If you don't talk universal ethics on scale, I'm sorry, man, it's not going to change so fast. So you have to scale, and after scale, you have to reach, right? How do you reach? It's simple. It had to be technology. Technology is in everybody. Is there anybody here who doesn't have a mobile phone? I rest my case. Who? No, I think वो ऐसे कर रही थी. Look at it. You don't? Yeah, but there you are. There are about 50 odd people who are virtually listening to this. I'm sure they all have multiple gadgets, not just a mobile phone. They have a smartphone, they have a laptop, maybe sitting in front of a desktop. Reach can be through there. Science. This watch that I'm wearing is an Apple Watch. You know, what do I use this for? What all does this tell me? Quickly, guys. It tells me the time. Yes, of course. Huh? It tells me what is my oxygen level. Do you know this? It tells me what is my heart rate. Believe me, I'll show it to you. I can take an ECG right now on this and send it to my doctor. Right? How many of you have heard the name oxytocin? Okay, and now we'll make the people who haven't heard it stand up. Who haven't heard the name oxytocin, stand up, please. Come on, guys, just be with me for some time. You'll remember this. Who haven't heard? All of you have to, those of you who didn't put up their hands, please stand up. Oxytocin, you know what it means? It's called the love hormone. Please sit down. That's science. Why can't this tell me what is the hormone level in my body right now? When my endorphins are low, it's a signal that my pressure is going up, I am going to get angry. It can alert me, it can buzz me and tell me, Ravi, calm down, peace of mind, let this pass, otherwise you're going to cause disaster. That's the possibility of science. So it's science and technology to me are two different things, and all of you know that His Holiness pushes to the edge of science, saying, don't let things like ethics and compassion remain as something which is a goody-goody, touchy-feely thing. There is hardcore science. For example, happy hormones, which indicate to you what's your reward motivation, what is the, what is the kind of, as they say, a love hormone, and things like that. Get that into the system. So those are the 3 core themes. I'll come back to you, please. There were some sub-themes that we adopted in the Goodness Project. Simple and relatable content. I have already said that we can't have research publications on the mobile. It has to be simple and research. I love some of the things that Ayur Nyas mentioned. They said they use stories. So we did that in the Goodness app. We took universal ethics, and thanks to people who are unfortunately not here right now, including people from Tibet House, we created stories and put them into the app. So when you're talking discernment, it is no longer a confusion thing that do I have to read 25 pages? No, there was a 2.5-minute story in an audiovisual medium, which even a 12-year-old or a 40-year-old could understand. But unfortunately, at that point in time, it was in English. Yeah. Mobile and app-driven, all of you know what it is. Gamification. You understand what it is, right? I'll come back to gamification after when I just finish this whole thing. Extend sphere of influence. I say this very, very carefully. And play on the front foot. Let us take this together. I don't practice discernment. मुंह में आता है बोल देता हूँ, ठीक है? So माफ कर देना if I say something that offends anybody here. Why is okay? What is the human resource development budget of this country? Does anyone know? No? It's about 8,000 crores. How many minutes? 2 minutes. 8,828 crores. What is the arms budget, the military budget of this country? Google it, question mark. It's 50 times that amount. Human resource development includes primary school, secondary school, college education, postgraduate education. And arms gets 50 times that amount. In our country, 21-22. Countries like the USA, where the arms expense is 3.7 of their GDP, is about 18 times what countries like India spend. We can't talk disarmament. We need to go back to that original thing that universally every one of us want to be treated with fairness and kindness, and that's an easier way to go. Right? Extend sphere of influence. Somebody, in fact, I remember the Dr. Geshila because he mentioned this. He said something like, we have Shivnadar School, we have Dr. Ambedkar School, we have Ramanujan School. Why isn't this place filled with all those students? Why are we doing this in a 150-seat auditorium? Why can't we have this in a stadium, which somebody said they did? One of the first speakers, Vineet Thakkar, he mentioned that there was 8,000 odd people who were in a stadium. Why can't we have 150,000 people listening to what universal ethics should be? How do you do that? We need to extend our, we can't just sit down as pundits, as scholars, as seniors, and hope that we will change the world. Imagine a rock concert with Shakira or somebody playing, or Deepika Padukone, if you like, and she talks universal ethics and compassion. Would it start making a change? But let's keep it simple so that the youth and the next gen can understand this whole thing. Currently, we do have on the app video-led modular learning. We are planning to, and this is important, so with your permission, I will take 60 more seconds. Yeah, 1 minute. One of the conferences that we had in MDI was we had a CEO conclave trying to see that every youth wants employment. So if industry starts adopting universal ethics and compassion as a yardstick for measuring. Imagine NASDAQ, no, NASCOM. NASCOM has about 40 crore people on their database, software and hardware engineers, 40 crore people. Imagine if their resumes, the first thing is, what is your compassion quotient? All of you know IQ. Why can't you have CQ? Can we create a measure? So that's one work that the Goodness Project embarked on. At this point of time, what we are saying is we don't, till that becomes a science, acceptable science, because it has to be done properly. Can we do a perception poll? Why can't, see, when COVID deaths were happening, Times of India had so many people died, so many people ill, so many people in hospital. Why can't you say the most compassionate city is Asansol? Dhanbad has the highest compassion index in the country. And you have a leaderboard every week on every one of your web links. Can you see the mind? You have a air quality index on Delhi roads, correct? Why can't you have a compassion index for Delhi, for Safdarjung, alag se, Defense Colony, alag se? Can this be done? A perception poll is what we are trying to work on at this stage. As we go along, I think we are also talking of compassion courses, and ultimately saying that leaving universal ethics and things like compassion, they're so large, they're so widely, differently understood. If you can actually give it to them in chewable bites, something that will hold the attention. Think of your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your young friends. If these things can be productized into small things that they can understand, it will be so much more easy. And give it to them in a medium that they understand. Stories, films, graphic novels. Think a little differently. I think there is a chance for change. Next level of high-techs, I already told you. Brand influences. And the rock concert was not an exaggeration. I think somewhere along the line, Geshe-la mentioned about when we started the Goodness Project, I did say that when we launched the Goodness app, we will take this to about 30,000 people. And my son did turn around and say, no, 30,000, you don't need technology. 30,000, you can do it. In our first month of launch, we hit 30,000. First month, and then COVID struck. But we have revived, and I think we are getting fresh wind in our sails, and we do hope to hit that 3 million, at least, if not 300 million mark that Geshe-la wants us to do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Professor. I think Professor Ravindran and including Ms. Pooja have demonstrated very well how to make active listeners, active audience. Oh, very good. I think one central message should travel across the globe from this panel or from Geshe-la Dorji's Tibet House, that three things is spirituality, humanity, ethicality can make any world leader immortal. They are craving to become popular. They are craving to become powerful. They are craving for praise. All these can be attained by adhering to these three. That is spirituality, humanity, ethicality. That is how you become a memorable person of the century like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and the present living His Highness Dalai Lama. I think we are short of time, and we cannot have a question and answer session. Do we have time for that? So we have exceeded the time limit already. I really, as I said before, we had very valuable inputs, insights from this panel, and I hope that we will carry forward all these things, whatever we have shared here, and we meet again, collaborate again, and see whatever we have said should come out in letter and spirit. Thank you all.
Thank you. With this, we have come to the end of today's third session. And I would like to thank our chairperson, Professor T.K. Mishra, and to all the speakers for a very great session. So last but not the least, I would like to request Dr. Daniel Fernandez to kindly offer a khatak and souvenirs to all the speakers and chairperson. Thank you, Dr. Fernandez. So we will now disperse for a short break for 15 minutes, and I would like to request everyone to be back in the auditorium for our last session, which is panel discussion on the role of spirituality to stop wars. And this session will be moderated by my dear colleague, Kungwa Chandela. Thank you.